Dynamics Basics 1. So when we talk about dynamics, the first thing we think about is compression. Now, compression is the most common form of dynamics that we use in mixing, but there's a handful of other ones too. But let's talk about compression. Let's talk about what it is. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, we're going to use an example from this session to talk about dynamics. So this is our gospel choir session. Okay, and we're going to solo our electric guitar. We're going to pan it right up the middle, hit Option there, and there's our guitar. Okay, so we're going to go up to our inserts and we're going to add a dynamics plugin. And this is Pro Tools' basic compressor limiter plugin, compressor limiter Dynamics 3. A functional plugin, nice looking plugin, great to explain a lot of stuff with. So first of all, the first control of a compressor we'll talk about real quick here is the threshold. So as you can see with this plugin, we have our threshold knob here, and you'll notice that just like the color of the knob, the orange, we have this orange line here that's telling us our threshold, and this orange little triangle arrow guy that is showing us our level there too. So this is nice, and a nice and visual plugin to help us see how this works. So if we hit play, get that going, you can see that as we raise our threshold, that if we put the threshold above the level to which the guitar reaches, then nothing happens. What we're doing is we're defining where the point at which, if the guitar goes over the threshold, at what point that guitar has to go over in order for our compressor to act upon it. So once it goes over the threshold, then we get gain reduction, which is what this GR stands for, and you can see the gain reduction occurring. And that's really the automatic turn downer, which is what I like to call a compressor, and we talked about that in audio recording and production. So as you can see, as I lower the threshold here, then more gain reduction occurs, and you can start to hear how the guitar kind of gets clamped down with the sound there. Okay, and so the next big thing to control with a compressor is the ratio. So the ratio is basically saying, now once our signal has gone over the threshold, how much are we going to turn it down based on how much it goes over? Okay, and so what happens is you have this ratio that's basically saying if it goes so many decibels over the threshold, then it gets turned down so many. Okay, and so basically what it equates to is the lower the threshold, the less it gets turned down, and the higher the threshold, the more it gets turned down. So basically once we get over 10:1 threshold, that's starting to get into what's called soft limiting. And then once we get above that, we're really getting into limiting, and official limiting is 100:1, and infinity to 1, which you'll see very often is also official limiting, also called hard limiting. But that's why this is called a compressor limiter, because once we get over that 10:1 mark, we've officially turned this into a limiter. Okay, and as you can see, this shelf here changes with that, and that's basically saying, you know, once the signal goes past the threshold, if it pushes higher and higher, then it's still going to go up. But as we increase our ratio, it doesn't matter how hard you push it, it's still going to just end up hanging out on that line. Okay, so that's kind of how the ratio works. We'll bring this back down here, and then the last two controls we want to talk about on a compressor are the attack and release. So basically they're going to control, once we have gone over the threshold, the actions of this gain reduction. So how quickly the gain reduction clamps down on the audio once the signal goes over the threshold, that's the attack. And then how quickly or slowly it lets go of it once the signal has gone back down below the threshold. So it's going to control how fast this orange meter jumps up there, and how fast or slow it disappears. So as we lower the attack, you'll notice that this is going to occur, jump down right at the same time basically as the guitar hits. Okay, we'll start that again. And And so if we adjust this and put it up, you'll see that the guitar kind of hits in the audio, and then this has a lag that it kind of comes after it. And you'll see how when we're working with drums how that's beneficial. Okay? And then the release, if we turn our release time down, you'll notice this kind of just disappears as soon as the guitar stops playing. But if we turn that up, you'll notice that it kind of hangs out and slowly goes back down. You see that? So those are things to adjust, and you'll notice that not all these controls are on all compressors, and that's because many compressors have some of those aspects, the attack and release, kind of built in to the compressor. And it all depends on how the compressor is creating its manner of compression and such, and some of those circumstances they're built in. In others, like this one, you have control over every parameter there. So we're going to pause for a second, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about Dynamics processors and preparing ourselves to use Dynamics processors in this mix.